Coming to you from the LoadingReadyRun orbiting underground moon base, it's the LRRcast.
We're ghosts today?
And today we're
Okay.
ghosts?
Yeah, we're
no,
ghosts.
that doesn't seem good.
The ghosts of not Christmas.
The
The
ghosts.
ghosts of April Fool's past.
Ha! Lol, we tricked you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not actually ghosts at all, and you fell
Yeah.
for it.
We're recording
Because
this
you
on.
trusted us.
We're recording this on April Fools. It'll be going up after April Fools, though.
So that's
so
probably
I
why
guess
we're not doing
That is the
topic.
greatest April Fool of all.
Yes.
Yep.
That it is no longer April Fools.
We have left an April Fool's landmine for you.
It's in the toilet.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I am Paul,
I'm Alex.
And I am Cameron.
and welcome to the podcast. And today, we thought we would talk about little joys, not like the greatest thing that's ever happened to you, but just little things you do.
Like tiny little precious moments in your day-to-day life. Because, I hope everybody has at least a few.
Yeah.
Or ways like if you've had a bad day, like how you
Just
treat
like-
yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway, you want to go ahead?
When we started, I immediately remembered one of the ones that I really love is when you buy like a candy bar or a treat of some sort, you put it in a pocket or like a bag or something and you forget about it. And then you remember later when you're like, oh, right.
Yeah.
I have this thing now.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so,
yeah, that's really
it's
good.
It's just like you surprise yourself in the best way possible.
I do that actually pretty consistently with I'll go to like Tim Hortons
Yeah.
and get like get like a meal combo thing there.
Right,
which
right.
Tim Hortons is like the food and then a drink and a donut. And I'll be like saving the donut for later.
Right.
And so it'll be in my pocket. And so it'll just be like, later on that day or even maybe like the next day, it just goes like, honey cruller.
Like it's a cartoon.
It's just like happiness
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
finding a honey cruller in your pocket and not knowing that you had it there.
Yeah, I did that to myself last year with my passport.
That's
Which
a little
was
more important.
also like a really good feeling being
Yeah.
like,
There it is. It's okay now.
as long as that happened before you realized that you had lost it in the first
yeah,
place.
yeah. No, it's like I definitely remember putting it where passports go.
That actually ties into something else. It's like those moments of just like intense relief,
Yeah.
which is weird because it's like such a roller coaster. Like I had this experience recently where I closed a file and blustered through the don't save dialogue, and I had this stab of anxiety,
Right.
and I was just like, open, it's fine.
Yeah.
I had just saved. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we're okay.
Sometimes that like obsessive compulsive saving.
Just-
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure in my sleep, my hand does this.
Yeah, just
Control S.
Control S.
Control S or
Yeah.
Control Z.
Well, like Graham was talking about how apparently in Illustrator and Photoshop the save and the undo buttons are flipped from each other. Like backspace and enter do different things in different ones, and one of them is like acknowledge, and the other one is
The text options
Yeah.
are also completely
Yeah.
different in
It's-
Illustrator and Photoshop. It's
The
so
thing that if you're Photoshop, the big Photoshop Illustrator thing that gets me is that you have Illustrator. Yeah, when you type in text or whatever, and then hit escape. That sets you back to just the arrow key, so you can do other stuff.
right.
In Photoshop, same thing, but it also says, "Oh, you guess you didn't want to type that," and undoes
It
all the
wipes
things
it
you
out.
typed out. Yeah,
it's
but
the worst.
so yeah, sometimes it works against you, but that feeling of happiness when
That's a good one.
things have, when like the automatic system on your computer or whatever that's supposed to help you out and hardly ever does
Yeah.
is actually like, oh, hey, wow, that actually worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, there's so many disasters that occur in life that when a safety net or like backup system functions correctly, you feel real good and real smart about it. Like when we had that quake recently, and I had just finished my earthquake bag.
Right.
I felt real clever snatching that up and running outside with it, and then positioning it in such a way that the "don't panic" words that I had written on it were facing the building, so anybody coming out could see it.
That's for you. You have to not panic.
Okay, I'm like, that's like a polarized effect.
I guess
Yeah,
you,
no,
I
when-
guess you
when it
really should
flips-
put it on both sides.
Yeah.
To be safe.
Oh, that would be clever.
No,
Yeah.
correct.
We're not that far advanced in our earthquakes kits yet, apparently.
Yeah.
So, like, my small pleasure that I give to myself a couple of times a week when I need it.
Sorry.
Yeah, that came out wrong.
I know. Please
Yeah.
continue.
Keck. What the gift that I give to myself is that I get a cappuccino and a Danish at this cafe downtown, and it has like this big room in the background that's like carpet in the back that's carpeted with really tall windows, and it looks out onto like a quiet street, and you know, if you get the right seat you can kind of see the ocean from it. And the coffee isn't great, and the food is mainly, you know, okay plus, but it's just a very pleasant, quiet environment that I can sit down at, open my laptop, read a couple of papers, and it's just very relaxing, and it, you know, brings my blood sugar up.
Yeah.
And gives me a little caffeine to wake me up. And it just has like this really pleasant, multifaceted calming effect.
Yeah. I have that same experience with like Japanese restaurants going for lunch by myself. And I started doing that when I was still in Toronto. There was a place that's still there that I was delighted to find is not only still there, but still has the menu item that I always ordered, because it was like, like multi-box Value Town explosion.
Was this the place that you were telling me about where like the chef has like their carving block?
No,
with
no,
just
that's,
like the bowl divided
that's
out
a
of it?
different place,
Oh, okay.
which I think has gone downhill a little bit. But this
that's
one
a
on
shame.
it's on Bloor. It's New Generation Sushi. They have like, I think they have a similar thing as Vancouver, where there's a lot of competition, so the prices
Okay.
are just driven into the dirt.
Right.
And it's just like everything I like, all in a box, and it's great. And I found a reasonable facsimile here in town at Itami. You can just get the bento box, and it's oftentimes at lunch. It's not very crowded.
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's a pretty quiet restaurant. And you just get a booth, and you just like, it's nice because you're just like by yourself, and you have this meal, and sometimes you catch up on Twitter a little bit or not.
Yeah.
And I'll just draw on napkins.
There's definitely something to be said for, I mean, like, especially like in terms of food and, you know, restaurants and stuff. There's always like I'm always on the lookout for there's like a very specific ambiance kind of thing that I like, you know,
Right.
or that allows you to have sort of relax and stuff, especially if you're going somewhere, you know, by yourself, so you don't have to like talking to other people and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you find that, and when you sort of find it's like, this is, you know, this could be my new spot.
It's
That's
tricky,
always
right? Because you
it's
got to
always
find
a real nice
a
thing.
place that's like kind of good, but also not crowded, and those
Yeah.
two are sometimes
Yeah,
at odds with
Mutually
each other.
exclusive.
Yeah. I noticed you didn't say the name of the place that you hang out.
Oh.
'Cause
Yeah. Well, it's like
secret.
yeah, it's where my parents used to go when we would visit family here in Victoria when I was a kid. So I kind of have like memories of it, and like the people there work hard, and it's quite busy a lot of the time. But for whatever reason, the back room is, I don't know if people know they can go there, but it's very rarely full.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like there's some places that are like that, where their dining room or usable area extends off a little further, and people just have a weird sort of like mental reluctance to go where they think that they're not allowed to go. But
Yeah,
just
luckily
like,
I don't have that function in my brain. I
You're
just
just
wander
like,
around.
"Brrr."
Yeah. You know, just plow through the place like a kidney stone through a urethra.
Oh, why, Cam? Why?
Not caring or
I was gonna say that
Carving a channel.
yeah, that seems very that's not very easily moving through the
You
space.
just have to keep your head
Yeah.
down, Paul, and just push
Power,
forward.
power through.
Yeah.
I'm noticing. So I mean, one of the things that comes out that I guess is an important thing is a lot of this sort of, a little pleasures for yourself or whatever seem to revolve around food.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, that's true for me too. Like, just like
Yeah.
having, a little treat or something that.
There was a theory raised, I think it was in response to one of these, like, millennial trashing think pieces, which was just like, why do young people eat at restaurants all the time? Because they're wasting their money. I was like, this is the one luxury we can afford.
Yeah.
So it's become very important to, I think, people in our generation.
Yeah,
Where it's just
like-
the eating out is like, yeah, this is within our price range and it's like a nice thing. Like, this is the extent of our luxury.
Yeah,
for
like-
people who.
Once or twice a week, I can afford $6. Right? That isn't extravagant until people start telling you, you're paying $6 for coffee? And I'm like,
God.
well, I'm
Yeah,
paying
I
$6
am.
for a couple of hours or an hour of peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what you're paying for.
There's more going on here than coffee. And most of it is being away from people who say shit like that. Right?
I mean,
$6 is a bargain to get away from you.
Yeah.
I would consider it to be sort of, I guess, a vice of mine to some extent that I do, eat out more than probably
Yeah.
should. Like, but I always look at it. I mean, in some ways, I look at it. It's like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't
Totally shouldn't.
drive.
Yeah.
I have very few,
Right. Vice-
things that I do to sort of waste money.
You don't play Magic.
Obviously it's not a waste of money because you're doing something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
But
Well, and that you also need.
yeah. But I certainly eat out more often than I guess most people do, maybe, and that often is just a result of I'm busy and doing
Right.
stuff and things, and it's convenient and it's nice, not to have to worry about that particular thing
Yeah.
when you of all the various things you have to worry. It's like that thing can be taken care of. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can go out, pay someone more than you would pay at a grocery store, but it's taken care of, and you don't have to
You don't have to do the
concern
dishes or
yourself.
anything.
You don't have to do the dishes afterwards. You don't have to clean up afterwards. You don't have to plan around it. Like, when everything else is chaos, sometimes contracting out the task of feeding you is, yeah, a luxury that you can find the money for.
Or at least providing you the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very special restaurants where they actually do the feeding.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Those ones are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Interesting ambiance.
What about non-food things that you do?
Well, I was gonna. This is maybe a bit of a weird jump, but I play Highlander, like Canadian Highlander for Magic, and the tournaments are cool and fine, but I actually think my best play experiences are just like one-on-one with like Serge or like Chris Ireland or a couple other people where we just like go someplace and grind out a few games where there's nothing at stake and there's not 47 people crammed into a ham locker.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's fun because it's like, doesn't matter if we win or lose. If we just have these like sweet game states, it's a whale of a time. So I would count that as like a little thing.
Yeah. I like that quite a lot.
I think it's actually my favorite way to play Magic.
One of my little things that I enjoy doing is writing pseudocode.
Pseudocode.
Pseudocode is what you write out by hand when you're programming something, instead of like actually writing out like all your variables and declaring things.
It's like, this is how I would do
Yeah,
it if I was
Those
programming.
like
Yeah.
blueprints.
Yeah, it's like blueprints, or you're developing your algorithm.
And it's usually
Right.
like it's not language specific.
Yeah, no,
is the
it's
big thing,
it's language agnostic. So what you're doing is like saying, like, I want to write a program that accomplishes this task. Okay, so I'm going to do this and this and this, and it needs to go in this order, and then I can economize by combining these steps or eliminating this step, or this step actually needs to be 7 steps. And it's very satisfying to kind of like take a task and assign it to something that has no consciousness but a lot of power to it. Like when you're programming, what you're really doing is you're teaching something, right? Like you are instructing
an incredibly linear machine.
Yeah, like you are instructing a machine in how to carry out an operation that makes intuitive sense to you.
Excuse me.
But has to be laid out in very explicit terms to a machine.
Well, completely explicit.
Yeah, well, yeah, and what it does for me is it helps with my mental bookkeeping about the things that I kind of take for granted in my thought processes. And it also helps me like look for gaps in my logic and reasoning.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, and like, this made me think about people sometimes when they talk about like mental health issues, where, like you say, the things that you take for granted, it's just like go buy milk. Sounds like an easy enough task.
Yeah.
But if you actually like break it down into like what's actually involved with that for people who struggle, it's like 15 or 20 steps.
Yeah.
It's like
it's sort of
it's like
overwhelming.
get up, put on clothes, like locate items, leave house, lock up, navigate outdoors, which you may be have anxiety about, you know, locate item. You know, it's like
from amongst like, and buying like there is no like carton labeled milk.
no, milk that you need.
Yeah,
that
the
fits your
kind
specs.
of milk. Yeah, you have to locate the correct.
Stand
milk.
there like and try to not cry as you agonize over choices. You know. Get scared, run home.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
It's, but yeah, like, I see what you mean about like it giving you mindfulness about like what's actually involved with.
Yeah, I like the term mindfulness about that. And it also really helps me. Like I was building this relatively simple program that would take a crystal that was, you know, defined by the coordinates of atoms in 3-dimensional space, right?
Yeah.
You take this file that has like the atom type and then 3 coordinates for it, and then you have like 1,000 of those.
Right.
And then you take it and you want to slice through it in such a way to expose the surface. So the way I was trying to do that was like take, I was trying to do it the way I would do it, right? The way the geologists used to do it, to make what's called a Miller index, right? Which is the surface that you slice, that you've exposed, which is you just tap through it.
Yeah, just tap it with a chisel.
Yeah. And I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't explain to the computer how to do that efficiently in like so many steps until I realized what I actually want to do is just take the crystal, rotate it so that it's flat, and delete everything above 0.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, now I understand much better how that works.
Yeah.
Right? Like I changed my perspective on the problem to something that
You
was
literally changed the perspective.
to well suited to the machine. And I found that I actually had like a better understanding of what I was doing. And that, like, that's probably getting out of small joys, because I mean, like, it wasn't like a revelation or anything, but I was like, oh, that's quite satisfying.
Yeah,
right.
Like little revelations like that are always give you.
And what actually gave me the most joy out of that was when I discussed the problem with the rest of my research group. They were like, "Oh yeah, this other student wrote that program last year, and that's how she solved it too."
Ooh.
And I'm like, "God damn it!" Also, yes.
Converging on the correct answer.
There's actually what I often think about. There's a line from Isaac Asimov's book that I think about a lot, where there's like a robot, and Isaac Asimov has this idea of the positronic brain, which is like it deals
The hand wave brain.
I mean, he didn't want to go into it in big detail, but the idea is that it sort of has different potentials for different activities, and then they all kind of balance out. And so this guy's talking to the robot, and he's like, do you want to, and the robot goes like, I think we should go this way. And, it would be a good idea to go this way. And he's like, well, you mean it would make you happy? And he's like, he's like, yeah, I guess I would. And then he's, wait, well, what do you? You're a robot. What do you mean make you happy? And he's like, well, I find that doing certain things make the positronic flow in my brain run smoother, and I interpret that as happiness. I don't know what humans
Like
say as
maybe
happiness.
it's just more optimal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think about
Yeah.
that a lot. That when they, because there's sometimes it's called sort of flow or a
Right.
state of
Your
but
drive.
when you're working on a problem or doing a thing where it seems to be kind of things seem to sort of come easier.
Yes. Yeah.
This-
No,
And-
I get that. I think I totally get that.
And that is a real. It's not something that you can sort of. It's difficult to be kind of sort of deliberately doing that, but if it can be achieved,
Well,
it's
you've given
certainly
me a perfect segue
pleasure.
into something that I was going to talk about. I think I really like inking,
Oh yeah.
which is interesting because I've realized that I'm working on a comic right now, and the various different steps of the comic are actually quite dissimilar sometimes. Like, the process I go through is like pre-concepting, where I figure out what's going to be in the panels in like tiny little thumbnail drawings, and that's tricky because but it's a step of the process where I'm allowed to make the most errors. Where I'm like, okay, panel, this panel doesn't work. Cut it, draw one in the side that will be inserted in, and I just figure out how the story is going to flow. Then I pencil the page, which is also a lot of the work because I have to do like the forms in like I use a blue pencil because
Okay,
it's
yeah.
really easy to erase after scanning. So I need to think about like what stuff will look like, get the poses right, do stuff like hands and shit, and all that stuff is kind of challenging. But then inking, which in some ways is tracing, but also not actually.
Well, there's sorry to interrupt, but there's
Yeah.
that
Chasing Amy.
Yeah, chasing Amy, where it's like where he's like saying, "So you're a tracer," and he's like, "I take the illustrations and I add depth and dimension to them,
Yeah.
and choose what elements are
Yeah,
are focused on." He's like, "So you're a tracer."
So you go over
That-
the other
that
guy's
must be-
drawing with your.
yeah,
The most fucking frustrating
like
shit.
that's a piece of dialogue you only write if you've had that conversation with
Yeah,
someone,
yeah.
right?
It's because I do pretty loose pencils because I'm working with myself.
Right.
If I was penciling for somebody else, I would probably do it a lot tighter. But I end up interpreting stuff when I have like music on and I'm working by myself, and I'm just inking. It's really nice actually because I achieve this sort of Zen state where it's just like, and it just like happens very naturally because I have a roadmap.
Right.
It's almost like exploring with like just like these strokes where it's just like here's what the hand's gonna look like, and I'm gonna add in this detail that I thought of, but I've just like laid the loose outline for. And sometimes you'll screw up, but it's like whatever, we fix it later. And then like after that, the process of toning it is a different sensation again. Where it's just like it's almost like I don't know how to differentiate it from the other bits, because then that's like filling in all the areas and then like worrying about lighting and stuff and like adding details in the background. Because I use a lot of corrections and additional line art using the stylus, so it's still the same stroke in the computer, but
Right.
I take like physical inked art and scan it and then enhance it, so it's like tradigital.
Okay.
But yeah, the inking process itself is really nice to just like zone out too. Sometimes when I'm streaming, Kim will come in and start talking to the chat about this or that or the other thing, and I'm perfectly happy to let that noise happen in the background while I just like work. People dig it. Just like, yeah, we get to talk with Kim about stuff. It's just like, all
You
right.
don't have to pay attention to Alex anymore.
Well, I mean, like it's incredibly. I guess this is another small joy I have. I really like watching skilled people work, which is why I watch playoff hockey and the Olympics, because watching people who are good at a thing do the thing they're good at
Pretty cool.
when they are heavily invested in it is really thrilling, kind of. Like, just watching the virtuosity of somebody who excels at a task.
I mean, of course, that's why everyone watches us do streaming.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like,
That's
and
Because of our elite
so
skills.
good at
yeah.
Dark Souls.
Well, the other thing that I really enjoy is fucking around and making mistakes, which is something I try to do off of stream.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of our regulars appreciate that I enjoy doing that, but a lot of people who just drop in
Or like, what is this garbage?
yeah, it's like, maybe you should turn down the difficulty.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not really why I'm
It's
here.
weird because like some people really appreciate that sort of like I guess rawness and kind of like natural way of things happening. Other people really hate it. Like the horror panel I did at PAX South, which I thought went swimmingly. There were a couple comments in the video. It's just like, this was all over the place and I couldn't follow it at all. I was like, interesting, because I thought that like we stayed within the realm of like horror and like we took a couple twists and turns, but like we hit all the landmarks that we wanted to.
Yeah.
It's like weird. I mean, I guess maybe you expect it to be like exactly like laid out in a sort of essay fashion.
Yeah, I guess if you're expecting a more kind of prepared thing, as opposed to just sort of a discussion on a topic, it could
Right.
be like, for instance, this podcast.
Yeah.
If you're expecting a prepared thing, you are going to be disappointed.
I guess
Yeah.
maybe that's just like not my personality type.
No.
Not that, like maybe it never was, and I can see why people would want to have like everything they want to say all set up in advance. But I'm like, I think I just want to wing this.
Yeah.
But like I'll make notes sometimes if there's specific things that I don't want to forget to talk about. But I basically wrote down some horror games that I wanted to talk about, and we did, and we got to it at one point or the other, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, like, I think what I'm discovering when I talk about this is that there are two kind of joys that I have. One of which is like the explicitly delineated, precise things coming together, and the other is pointedly not that.
Yeah, I guess maybe like.
Deliberately not doing.
Well, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we maybe talking about the difference between like mirth and satisfaction?
Maybe,
You know, because
yeah.
like you know, there's satisfaction and joy where it's just like struggling your ass off at something and then it clicks and works and you're like, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
and that's great. But that would be different from somebody sends you like the best internet zinger you've ever read in your life,
Yeah.
and you're crippled with laughter. Like it's not something that you have a personal satisfaction in completing, but you find it delightful. In some ways, it's almost a little bit like what you describe of watching other people be really competent at something. It's like somebody thought to put these elements together in like a humorous context, and it's so clever it makes your teeth hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I'm not sure that it's mirth and satisfaction. Like, I think that's valid and interesting. I'm not sure it's quite that for me, at least.
It's I guess the idea of it sort of being, taking pleasure in producing something, and also taking pleasure in deliberately not producing anything.
Yeah.
taking pleasure in explicitly like saying, taking that pressure off yourself for a small amount of time.
Yeah.
It's like an ebb and flow almost. Like
Yeah, I mean, I think
well,
that's...
like when I excuse me, when I play video games and I end up with like the ability to screw around with physics objects, you bet your ass I'm going to spend like 20 minutes just throwing chairs around.
Right.
Which is no part of the game really, but man, it's fun. It doesn't accomplish anything either, apart from me just like having a fun time. So,
But it's like, sitting on your couch watching TV or whatever for weeks or months at a time becomes becomes sort of not a pleasurable thing. It becomes
Right.
sort of a depressing thing.
Right. Yeah.
But sitting on your couch watching TV after having had a really productive day can be great. You know,
Yeah.
that's really
Feels well earned.
yeah. It
and-
feels. I guess that's already feels sort of well earned, or feels.
I mean, like,
Or if if you are sort of sort of the idea of kind of explicitly giving yourself the permission to knock off.
yeah, like
Okay.
I think I eventually ended up sleeping great last night because I had sorted out a bunch of stuff that was troubling me. And, you know, just like, and the same thing happens if you have like a really, even like a hard day, like maybe not one that really ravages you and like leaves you kind of dead, but just like one where you did a lot of work and like Paul says, like you accomplished a lot and felt satisfied, and then it's like it's time to rest,
Yeah.
and you have such good sleep, and you just wake up and you're like, ah, that was good. So that's a nice one.
Like the best. I brought this up before we actually started recording, but I should probably say it in the context of the podcast. But like the speech that I always come back to when I think about small pleasures is Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks, where he says, you know, once a day, give yourself permission, or buy yourself a gift, right? And he was talking about enjoying a good cup of strong black coffee, right? In the diner in Twin Peaks, and that's a little austere for me.
Yeah.
Like, coffee is. I want to enjoy it, but I'd like a bit more
Yeah.
out of
That's what the
like.
Danish is for.
Yeah, exactly. But the subtext there was about that you, not necessarily whether you deserve it or not, but the fact that you deserve it is kind of aside to the point that you should have pleasure in life.
Yeah.
That no matter if you've fucked up, no matter if you've earned it or not, you have the right to at least the small joys.
Well, it's like you made it through another day.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes that's all
Sometimes
people
they-
can manage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes that's all you can get. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like when people tell you, you know, well, I don't know if people actually tell you this. But there's a pettiness to saying, well, you know, I should only give this to myself if I have earned it. And like that there is, you know, that there is a discipline to that. But sometimes maybe you don't need to always earn the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Maybe just being around is enough reason to want to have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's different magnitudes of these things you can get for yourself. Maybe you do save the bottle of champagne for when you finish the project.
Yeah.
But you go out and have a beer,
Yeah.
you know?
What about, so, you know, just talking about small pleasures and things. What about things that you, like if you have had like a really bad day? Something, you know, something really bad, either whatever you're working on doesn't work out, or something really sad has happened or whatever. Do you have anything in particular that you do to, not necessarily cheer yourself up, but to
Yeah.
make yourself feel better?
Chow, music, video games.
Yeah.
Not always in that order, but like they're useful distractions. A lot of those things have helped me through pretty troubling times before, and I mean I consider myself very lucky that I've never had to fall back on any sort of thing that's genuinely destructive.
Yeah.
Because I can see and understand, you know, having dealt with depression before, the mechanics that lead people to get stuck in places and like these flawed coping mechanisms that can really end up causing more trouble than they relieve in the end. But it's just like, it's too easy. Like, it's weird because I'm known for being like a teetotaler, which is to say, like, I don't drink, and I never have. I've thought about it a bunch, but most of the time when I'm like, oh, this might be a thing, I'm like, I don't want to, like, that is maybe a bad precedent to set for me in this particular headspace right now. Because, you know, you hear stuff about
You don't want that to become sort of
I don't-
associated with the...
like, if I was going to start drinking, I would want to be in a situation where it was purely just like a thing you did every once in a while, just like And, you know,
And you want to sort of be with friends and stuff.
yeah, and it's like I bail out very easily from taking the risk. And it might be in like non-existent one because like I'm in a generally good space right now, but you know there's that fear and that sort of reluctance where it's just like, man, I've sort of seen what this can do to people, so just leave it. I'll just play more video games.
That's fair.
You know, it's like because you can go on a video games bender and still show up to work, not fucked up.
Yeah.
So
be a little sleep deprived. But
yeah. So, like, I mean, the sort of, I guess the sort of the risk reward of the things that I use to cope are pretty low. You know, like they're just sort of like fun things, but I can't imagine myself getting profoundly fucked up from them.
Right.
So,
Like, I'm trying to think about what I do when I've had a bad day. And I realize I don't cope well with bad days.
yeah.
Because I don't know if this is a familial thing, but, well, I mean, like, I'll attack it from that perspective. The family crest for the Lauders
You told me this.
is a stump. It is not a mighty oak. It is what is left of a mighty oak after you have taken away all the useful parts, and all you have left is this stump in the middle of your field that
The
you need to get rid
stubbornness.
of. Yeah, it is not fortitude, it is not stalwartness, it's not bravery, it's stubbornness.
It's obstinance.
Yeah, obstinance, exactly.
Cam
it's
obstinate
definitely,
Lauder.
yeah, definitely kind of low on the family crest totem pole.
Yeah, exactly. It is not, like, it is the fuck you, I'm here of family crests.
Just like
And it can be dislodged.
you're gonna need a lot of saltpeter to deal
Yeah,
with me.
you're gonna need a backhoe, motherfucker. Come and get it. Right? Like, and that, for better or worse, usually for worse, is how I deal with problems.
Ooh,
Which
yeah.
is head down, deal with it. And it works. And it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But I tend not, like when I have a bad day, I tend to double down on it and try to smash my way through it.
yeah.
And so the way that I deal with that is that I don't until someone says, you don't have to deal with this right now. You can just step away from it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's better. And I'm
Well,
like, no, I
that's-
have to
yeah.
get this done. And they're like, when was the last time you ate? And I'm like, 37 days ago.
oh god,
Like,
I hate that one.
Maybe I know why you're not feeling great right now. Then.
Yeah. But like tell that to somebody who's like struggling. The worst is when like you're really suffering and it becomes revealed to you that it's because of something stupid you did.
Yeah.
And you just feel worse.
Yeah.
And you almost don't want to take the
Oh,
easy
yeah.
path of relief to just
Just out of spite.
Yeah.
it's like, no, I don't need food. Fuck you. I'll keep working.
Yeah. So like the mechanism I have for dealing with that is what we discussed in a previous podcast several weeks ago, which is that I try to have several things on the go at once that I can move between when I hit a serious roadblock. Because if I don't have that, I just like sit there and grind the transaxle, right?
You're just grinding metal.
Yeah. Until all the cogs strip.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess I definitely have a pretty good percentage or a pretty good chunk of like the sort of vegging out, you know. And I think, I mean, that's one of the things with video games that I think is,
Not all of them are good for that.
well, but that I think video games have over movies and television and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like a video game for occupying as much of your attention as possible.
You know what's nice about video games, and it applies more clearly to certain games over others, it sometimes pops you out of the context you have in real life where things aren't working out and don't make sense and you don't have any control over your situation. And you go to a place where all of those things do make sense and you do have control. You know exactly what you have to do to succeed.
Right, yeah.
Because it's codified.
How often, yeah.
And you ultimately can't actually fail either. You just, worst case, you usually start again. Even in Dark Souls, you'll just show up at the bonfire again.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a relief to that, where it's just like, what if the world actually made sense?
Yeah.
And your goals were very clearly defined little like icons that you had to chase towards?
Yeah.
How many times would it be, it'd be nice if, your goals were little things put out and you had like little meters that you could like see filling out. Oh, my, my hunger meter is getting a little low. I better do something about it.
I've heard that there's, I want to say like CBT stuff that, like cognitive behavioral therapy that works on like gamifying your real life, where they take those sort of like addictive mechanisms that are so good in like MMOs and stuff and apply it to you finishing your taxes and cleaning your room and finishing your paintings, which I think is a great idea.
I mean, I think you can. I don't know if that would be a explicitly CBT thing, but
it's something. I don't actually know
but
what it is.
I mean, I can see that is certainly. I mean, I've seen apps and stuff for like phones that do that.
Right.
Can I just say how unfortunate it is that the acronym for cognitive behavioral therapy is also the acronym for cock and ball torture? It's like, I'm just feeling messed up. I need some CBT. Sorry.
Just make sure. Just make sure if you're going to a CBT practitioner that you know which one.
Either one of those could help you out, but just be clear which one you need.
If they're wearing high heels, right?
Like, perfect. This is going to sort out all my troubles.
Because you're going to be disappointed if you're expecting one and you go to the other one. Either way, you're going to be very unhappy.
It's just like, okay, we're going to be mindful of our thoughts and stuff.
So when do you destroy my ball sack?
I was hoping you could step on me. That's next door.
Oh, that's next door. Okay, yeah.
Same unit.
The CBT office complex. It's
a combo class. They do both.
The Mike Daisy in his monologue about Moby Dick talks about Moby Dick, obviously, but he also talks about Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And one of the parallels he draws between them is the fact that when Ishmael is choosing ships, he gets on the Pequod, even though people are like, devil's ship, right? Don't go near it, and the Pequod is always described as being surrounded by black water and storm clouds, and it's like, well, that one looks dangerous and bad, and maybe let's not get on that one. And he combines that with the Kobayashi Maru in Star Trek II, which, if you're not familiar with the Kobayashi Maru, is a training scenario in Starfleet where no matter what you do, nothing works, your ship is destroyed, and you lose.
Also they also use it in the new Star Trek.
Yeah. And it is the no-win scenario.
Oh,
it's a supposed to lose fight.
Well,
it's a fight where you go into it, and no matter how many times you do it, no matter what strategy you choose, it fails and you die. And it is as a test of character.
Oh, okay.
Which is what they say.
Because I might like, if I had just heard of that, I would think it's like, is this maybe just like a lose the least kind of?
No, it's always lose the exact same amount because your crew is killed, your ship is destroyed, and you die.
And the other ship was also destroyed.
Yeah, the ship that you're supposed to rescue.
But the idea is that how do you deal with failure in that scenario?
Yeah, that the way that you deal with death and failure, because there are scenarios in your life where you just don't win.
And the whole thing is that Kirk is the only one who's ever beaten it because he hacked the system to
because
beat
he
it.
cheated.
And so that's depending on who you are in the real world and also in Starfleet. That's either like he's brilliant. That's amazing.
He's a fucking cheater.
Or you missed the point of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea that I liked is that Kirk kept doing it, and he tried a bunch of solutions. None of them worked, so he tried another solution, which was cheating.
Yeah,
and it works really well in Wrath of Khan because Kirk keeps just like effortlessly flouncing through all these obstacles, and people around him are dying, but he survives them over and over again by basically cheating his way through the movie until at the very end he can't anymore, and Spock dies. Right, Spock finally has, spoilers, Spock sacrifices himself to save the ship. Even though Kirk cheated all the way through, he finally ran into a situation
That
where...
he couldn't cheat at it.
Yeah, that you can't cheat your way out of. And yeah, he had never dealt with a no-win scenario before.
Okay.
So I really like the element of games where, like, you just die sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And maybe it's even a scripted death where you die. But frequently there's no flawless way through.
Yeah. I mean, it's like...
Of course, then you go watch a speed run and you go, oh,
Yeah.
there was a flawless way
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
just
Oh,
stupid.
somebody did a no-hit run of Dark Souls on a Rock Band controller.
Or like,
Cool.
I think in Demon Souls, like the first boss you encounter, or one of the early bosses is like just meant to kill you, but if you're really, 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 really good, you can kill it. But it's almost impossible.
Is that like taking on Asylum Demon in Dark Souls with the broken sword hilt?
Probably.
And just doing like two.
Just 2 to death.
Yeah.
Just
And
like
then
bare
like
hand.
and then like you keep trying that and then the player starves to death. Like you actually starve to death trying to take down the Asylum Demon like that.
Oh, man.
So,
I can't wait for Dark Souls 3.
Me neither.
I'm excited.
small pleasures, taking down the Asylum Demon with a sword, broken sword hilt.
Yep.
Or you just take the 6 fire bombs, which seems like a really, really short-sighted thing. I mean, it's great
Yeah.
for speed runs.
Yeah. Well, don't you also get his mallet? If
Yeah, but you
take him
can't
down?
use it.
Oh, okay, because it's like 40 strength.
Anywho,
Everything is Dark Souls.
everything is Dark. It ultimately
so.
is all about Dark Souls.
That's obviously foremost in your minds these days.
But yeah, the reason why I brought up Mike Daisy's monologue was that, like, he talks about, like, you know, sometimes you're just going through life and you encounter a no-win scenario, right? And like, he says it would have been really great for him if somebody had set up a no-win scenario for him in his life so that he could just experience it and have someone come along and say, sometimes shit happens and there's no consequences for this one, actually.
Yeah.
There are no consequences for losing this scenario. And it is like an existential exercise for you. Because here you are 100% safe. There is no downside to this lose-lose scenario.
But it's important that you understand it.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't know. You know, you may have gone through many no-win scenarios, but you don't know that there are no-win.
Yeah,
scenarios.
you don't know going in, right? You're just
You
like,
think you just lost.
yeah, you're just going through your life and there's a no-win scenario and you're like, well, I guess I lost,
Yeah.
right? Could I have done anything else? No, I couldn't have.
And you know, some of those no-win scenarios, as long as they don't completely destroy you, you will need a small joy or two to get through it. You know.
So, and of course,
Excuse me.
there's the most important small joy.
Uh-oh.
Ice cream!
Eye cream!
Eye cream.
Eye cream. Okay.
Okay, let's go for dilly bars. Let's make James take us for dilly bars.
What? Okay. Favorite ice cream, like, not necessarily just flavor, but just like.
Experience? Okay, can I go
Full-
first?
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it. Because I got to think about this.
I go to Dairy Queen, which is, you know, worst ice cream probably on earth, but I like
There's
it.
worse.
Yeah, there's worse ice cream.
Like Chapman's is pretty shitty.
I get the tiniest Blizzard, which you can get like a kid-sized Blizzard. So it's not like you're eating 2 liters of soft serve, because I'm allergic to dairy, so I can't actually have very much of it. But I get it with the cherries and the cone dip. So you get like actual like shards of chocolate instead of chocolate syrup in it. And it's like this really nice tactile experience.
Solid.
Yeah.
A Blizzard is pretty, for something that is, you know, very mass market, you know, very common. A Blizzard is actually very high up on the list of tasty. Like,
They're
there's
good.
the thing in 30 Rock. Talk about that. I mean, they talk about they're like, Jack is taking I forget what her name is, but he's taking her out to like the most expensive dessert It's got like gold leaf and everything in it.
Right.
And various things happen, but then like at the end of the episode, she's like, "I will take you to the best." The best dessert you've ever did, and they go to McDonald's and get like a McFlurry, and he's like eating. He's like, "This is the best thing I've ever had."
Wow.
And of course, McFlurry is
A
It's a-
Blizzard
a-
analog.
it's a Blizzard.
I had
Everybody
I
has
had my
different variations.
What I
of
think
the
was
thing.
maybe my first McFlurry ever, like last week. They're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
Blizzard.
Yeah. Although the best ice cream I've ever had comes from a little shop in Toronto where they make their own stuff, and they make weird flavors too. Like they'll do Guinness ice cream
Right.
and like cardamom and shit like that. But my favorite is the coffee toffee, and it's a pretty simple kind of known recipe, but fuck,
It sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
really good. Because
Yeah.
it's really creamy, and the flavors are all correct, and like there's a little bit of that tactile sensation you are describing with the little bits of toffee. And it's just
yeah.
like they have the weirdest ice cream they have, and it's very good, but I don't usually get it. They have a roasted marshmallow ice cream that it's impossible how accurate the flavor is.
Right.
You're like, this is a Matrix hack, because you are giving me the exact taste of a toasted, like campfire roasted marshmallow in this even textured
Like,
ice treat.
Homogenized.
Like
like-
how? How the fuck did you do this?
I mean,
I must know.
it helps that marshmallows are already artificially flavored. So
It's true.
Yeah.
They
but
take
it's
that
just like,
artificial flavor.
But
and
it's
add
like the roastedness.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing that is so confusing.
yeah.
is how
Wouldn't it
they
be
manage
infuriating if it was just like marshmallow flavoring,
liquid
smoke?
smoke?
Yeah.
liquid smoke.
And you're like,
It might
oh,
be that.
Well, that's much less magical.
That's the man. Those
You just some dude's just like smoking over and he just like flicks the ash. It's like, yeah, the kids will love this stuff. It's like, oh, I can't stop eating it. It's so good.
anyway.
Ice cream.
So yeah, we kind of talked about a bunch of different things there,
We
but
sure did.
sometimes
Just like little joys.
small pleasures. Sometimes you got to treat yourself, and sometimes shit just goes wrong, and there's
And then
nothing
you
you can
need
do
those-
about it.
Yeah.
And in those times, it's good to have something to, a little something to make yourself feel better, even
Yeah.
if only, even, and it's not like it has to be, like, you know it's temporary. We know it's temporary. Everybody knows that, like, playing a video game or watching TV or eating some ice cream or whatever isn't going to be solving the
Yeah.
problem that you're trying to solve.
But
But it's
Yeah.
important sometimes just to
center yourself.
send yourself.
Well, it
take a
will
step
remind
back.
you that life is worth living.
Yeah.
That it's
Well,
not
like
always hopeless bullshit.
Well, what was the there's a biblical riddle
Is there?
that there was a king who wanted a ring, a magic ring that would make him feel better, no matter what the situation was.
Oh, yeah.
That would make him happy when he was sad, and would give him pause when he was joyful.
Okay.
And so somebody made him a ring with the words "This too shall pass" on it,
Ooh.
which is
That's
where
good.
that phrase comes from. But it's the one thing that you can look at where you're like, everything is fucked for now,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
And when you're like riding really high, you can be like, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves
yeah,
here.
like enjoy yourself.
Yeah, enjoy yourself, but like
be
this
aware that
too is
yeah.
this too shall
I mean
pass.
that's like that sort of cyclical nature is it's sort of been helpful to me a little bit, where it's just like things will be shitty for a long time, and then eventually they'll just like get better, and then they'll get worse again, and then you just keep going up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's something to be said for trying to like minimize the time it's down and maximize the time it's up, but it will sort of cycle.
Yeah.
And in some ways you can kind of count on that.
And as long as those cycles aren't too
Long.
long,
Yeah.
or long or deep,
Yeah. Yeah, as long as the period isn't super long.
Yeah.
and the
Sometimes you gotta do stuff
The
to sort
period
of
and
make sure it's
amplitude are
okay.
both
Yeah,
important.
both important. Yeah.
Yeah. If the period is too long, then it'll be forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if the amplitude is too
I guess
long,
I'm
too
looking-
big, then you get in trouble.
I'm
So-
still struggling to find a less trite way of saying it gets better.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
like the sentiment is really great and
Yeah.
there's truth to that, but it
it's
sounds
very
so
passive.
It's
right?
so passive, and it sounds like the kind of thing invented and said by people who have never known suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, it gets better. It's like fuck you, it gets better.
yeah, it gets better because people make it better,
Yeah.
right? It gets better because somebody inch by bloody inch makes it better. And usually that person is you.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, there's a lot more complexity to that sentiment that needs to get
But yeah, I
articulated.
mean, like-
It's just like,
It's not wrong.
yeah.
It's just not complete.
Yeah, it's not complete, and like I said, super trite.
Anyway, we've ended this thing like 6 times. now.
Yeah, so we should probably go away now and eat some ice cream.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will talk to you later. And as always, this podcast is brought to you from our Patreon, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. It's not up on the screen because, and we're all just pointing in different directions. It's not on the screen because James abandoned us and isn't controlling the
jerk.
computer to make it appear.
Maybe he went to go and get us dilly bars.
Dilly bar.
We can only hope. So, until next time, we will talk to you then.
Toodles.